What's up, everybody? My name is Josh Riel. You just watched the season 2 premiere of Powers, at least I hope you did, because we're going to talk full spoilers with co-creator Brian Michael Bendis and one of the star of the show, Olesya Rulin, who plays Calista. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Happy to have you guys here talking about Powers. For those who just watched that episode, they might not know if they didn't read the comic book that the comic actually started with Who Killed Retro Girl.
Yes.
But you spent a season building up to that, to kind of get to know Retro Girl and flesh out the world a bit. But now we're finally here. So what's it like to you to finally bring your first comic book story to the screen?
No, it was a really cool, just the way things kind of laid out. Like we ended the season last season on Who Killed Retro Girl, which brings us up to where the comic actually started its way. The bummer is that even though the book has sold really well over the years and the title of the first graphic novel is Who Killed Retro Girl, people really didn't see it coming. People were like, at the end of last season, the amount of, are you kidding me? It's the title of the book. I didn't know what to say, and so I felt like a little loosey with the football, like, gotcha again. But and it just was this great point where we can come to the show for the new season with this. We had like a mandate of what we wanted the show to look like and what the show to feel like and what elements from the comic book we actually wanted to bring, the visual aesthetics of the comic that we wanted to bring onto the show. And for people who just watched the episode, who may or may not have tuned in for the first season, there's a huge leap in style for this episode, for this whole thing. And some of it has been directly influenced by Mike Oeming's artwork. So it came to a nice place that the story caught up to the comic, and now the show kind of becomes the comic. So it's very cool.
Very cool. Also, Olesya, your character, Calista, she's got superpowers now.
I do.
And it's sort of a fun, like, kind of lighthearted scene as she's like learning to use the powers, but then it quickly takes a darker, more serious turn when she goes after her deadbeat father and uses her powers on him to teach him a lesson. So would you say that her powers are kind of turning her to the dark side, or is that more of like a righteous anger of just getting her frustration out?
Calista in season 2, she's evolved into more of like an internal young woman, whereas in season 1, she's looking for external stimulus to try to find stability and power and just a safe haven. And in season 2, she gets an opportunity to look inwardly. And when you do that, the good stuff comes up, but also the bad stuff comes up, like anytime you do some self-help work, right? So I think when she finds her dad, yes, there is that, like, I'm gonna get vengeance, I'm not weak anymore, I'm not by myself, I'm stronger, but it's also that, her powers come from a source that is not necessarily the purest, AKA wolf. So how do you balance these amazing abilities that don't necessarily come from the best well of knowledge that's pure, So I think it is part Calista trying to find vengeance and some kind of comfort, but it's also where they're coming from, and is that stimulated and heightened because they're wolf's powers.
Yeah.
And 500 other people that he ate powers. But the segment in the beginning was so much fun, and that's something Brian and I talked about a lot. That's the best part of like Spider-Man is like when he's trying to find his spider senses, right? And so it was such a great segment to shoot to be able to like, well, just because you can fly, can you land? And can you pick up a car? And if you sneeze, does like everything blow up? Or what happens? And that was such a fun conversation to have, and then to explore. And as an actress to play out and act, and I've never done any of those things before, so luckily, as Calista's learning, I'm literally learning on set. I was like, oh, I'm going 60 feet in the air, and everyone's there watching, they're like, be scared. I'm like, no problem, just terrified. So it worked out for me.
It was a lot of fun to watch, and it was like a big thing in the writer's room, was about you and about your character, and everything we have the birth of a hero, like a birth of a hero in the modern day with modern sensibilities. And with that, here's a character with literally an angel and devil on her shoulder, not literally, but there's an angel and devil on her shoulder. And watching her wrestle with that throughout the season is a big deal. So we thought about, like, anytime we're not on the case, has got to be a very important piece of that, right? And so, because it does all come together eventually, like, she's a part of the Retro Girl storyline, but when we're cutting away from the ticking clock, I get it, the ticking clock of the case having to wrap, we cut to her, it's got to be these powerful, important moments. And I am philosophically believe that the first Spider-Man movie's success is completely wrapped around that scene where Tobey Maguire is like trying to figure out how to use his webs. Like people could have watched it for 45 minutes. They were so charmed by that they didn't even realize the last half of the movie didn't make any sense. So it's a great part of the genre that we wanted to do our version of.
Yeah, and I do like that they'd come from Wolf, so there's a bit of that darkness still there.
No, and also she had a list of things she would do if she had power, and they were all, I'm going to mess up this person. She's going to get revenge on this. She's going to take her list of things of fixing those who did her wrong is the first thing, and then she needs to get her powers. It becomes, well, maybe that's not the best road to go down, but to see how far she'll go. We don't know what she'll do. And that's exciting.
I also don't know what I'm capable of doing as an actor. That's incredibly exciting too. Every time I would get a new script, I'd be like, what am I doing? Because my capabilities are so vast. And like a young woman, you are capable of doing so many things and so many mistakes and so many choices. And what are those repercussions? And with Calista, it's just heightened on such a supernatural level. And there's such a beauty in that, to perform that, because you have so much more range and being like, well, this is a choice. And my choice just happens to be that I get to jump off of a roof and maybe kill someone. It's like, whoa, that's intense.
And also, this is a benefit of having a second season, is that we got to watch the actors inhabit their characters throughout the first season. And then we come together as writers and talk about, like, well, you know what? And sometimes they're inhabiting, and also they're interacting with the other actors offset and onset in ways that will be surprising and that will inform us as writers and go, oh, we should do more of that. You know what I mean? Like you and Logan became buds, and we're like, they're fun to watch, just being friends. We should get them together. And then even that conversation about like, how could they possibly be friends after everything we did the first season? And just in watching you like want to be, like you wanted to be a superhero, like you wanted the costume and you wanted, so to write into that was a lot of fun. And then as the season goes, you're right, we did give you a lot of challenges because it just became clear you could do anything. And that was, but it was like, oh, let's write her this devastating scene. Let's write her this action scene. You got a lot of cool stuff to do because of that. And that goes to other actors on the, Susan had come up to us and said, wow, you're really giving me a lot to do. I'm like, yeah, because you can do a lot.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot more to expect from the rest of the season.
Well, and it's also not far off from my day job as a comic book writer. Once you're working with a comic book artist, you realize, oh, look what they can do that they haven't been able to do yet. And I've had that luck with a lot of collaborators where you can clearly see, oh, they would do this amazingly. So no one lets them do it, and then you let them, and they go nuts.
Yeah. So this episode ended on a big cliffhanger. No pun intended. I'm sorry. So between that, like it looks like he committed suicide at the end. That's what it looks like. And then there was the car exploded. Like they should have been in the car, right?
We really blew up that car, by the way.
You did?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You can blow up cars in downtown Atlanta. No one even notices.
Good to know.
No one even blinked.
So are we meant to believe, no spoilers, but are we meant to believe that there's more going on to the death of Retro Girl? Because we know if you've read the comic book, you go in thinking, like, oh, I know who did it, but maybe we all really don't.
The Who Killed Retro Girl in the show is different than the comic. So that we thought, number one, that's fun for readers as well, because you're not just getting a beat for beat rehash of a story you've already read, but and not unlike how they did Civil War. Like it's the movie and the comic have the same energy, but they're different outcomes. Spoilers. And so we did that. Well, let these characters and this story and this world that we're building in the television dictate its own mystery, and instead of just trying to shove our pre-written story into it, and that's what we did. So yeah, there's more to come, but in what shape, in what size, and how, we're very proud of. So we won't spoil any of that. But the shape of the season will be very surprising to people, particularly who are like, oh, it's one of those shows you'll find out in episode 10 Who Killed Retro Girl. You may find out in episode 2. You may find out in episode 4. You may find out in episode 8. Like, we're very excited about how we, because it's Who Killed Retro Girl, and then it's also the fallout of what it's like in a world where there was a superhero who just her existence kept a status quo, right? Just her being there made people think twice about acting a fool. And then she's gone, and those same people may feel very annoyed with themselves for allowing themselves to feel that way, or just anger. And so the chaos that comes out of it, and what that brings us for this season is a big get too.
Yeah. And speaking of Retro Girl, not in this first episode, but we've seen in the trailers and the posters that you actually put on the costume of Retro Girl and so become the new Retro Girl. So what's it like, becoming the new Retro Girl?
Can I talk about this, or is it too much of a spoiler?
In as much vague
It is so in the trailer.
I have to be able to say.
And in the comic.
Give us a little something.
Honestly, for Calista to become Retro Girl, I don't necessarily think it was a decision she made consciously, like, I'm going to be a hero now. I think she saw this void, and Retro Girl represented so much for everyone, for stability and safety and security of the planet, not just of a small, state. It was the world. And so when she passes away, for Calista, it was not only like a mother figure, but like my childhood hope. That was it. Like, as long as she was around, everything still had the possibility of being okay. So when she puts on her costume, it's almost like a security blanket, but like, okay, I can't see her anymore, but I'm just gonna put this on and it'll make me feel better. And when she makes that choice to become Retro Girl, the new one, I don't think it's like, I'm gonna do this. It's more of just like, I think I can do this. And as a young adult, it's a rash decision, like you do make when you're a young adult, and you're like, oh yeah, and then right as she does it, I think then she gets that realization of like, and what does this mean? And oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready, and I can't take it back, and I'm going to try to take it back, or maybe I'm not, or find a balance in it. And then she realizes what Retro Girl actually stood for, because up to that point, she's like, oh yeah, she saves the world, and she doesn't understand the business behind it. She doesn't understand the repercussions of being this figure. And the second she puts that costume on and people see it, she feels it full blown, and it's enough to send chills down her spine. And she's like, wait, I'm unaware. And then she has to learn really quickly. And so season 2 is that journey of her trying to play catch up, stepping into something that she was not prepared for.
Wow, that's crazy. And then also with the loss of Retro Girl, an older hero comes back, is Super Shock. And Super Shock is very exciting for 2 reasons. One is that in the Powers universe, he is the number one, like the most powerful superhero. He's the Superman, he's the Dr. Manhattan. But also that it is being played by Michael Madsen, which is great casting. So can you talk about what it's like having him on the show?
It was actually from the moment of casting him all the way through. He's quite a character. He does not let you down in that department. And we were on the phone with him talking about this, and he was like, I always wanted to be a superhero. I do a great Michael Madsen.
Yeah, you do.
I always wanted to be a superhero. I was waiting for the call. I'm in. Let's do it. And he loved his costume. He wore it around. He was like, he was just, he embodied it, man. It was very, very cool. Like, and I also like just there's a naturalism he brings. Like he looks like the Marble Man. Like in life, he just really looks like he
and
looks
sounds
like a rugged.
Him.
Yeah, I know.
Like...
and then to bring that gravitas to a superhero was like, well, this is And also the costume, our costume designer is amazing. That's the closest to the comic as any of the, yours and his are very close. So really he walks on set like, there you go.
Yeah, it's super
and these
fun.
things weren't designed to live.
Right.
And then she made it happen. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, the way Michael draws them. Is,
Yeah.
That's larger than life. Like it doesn't look like a human should do it, but he really does embody it. And,
he really does.
Yeah, and add that. You can add that to the list of people who say like, oh, the new Psylocke from the X-Men movie, like that's the most loyal adaptation. It's like, really? Have you seen Super Shock? Have you seen Retro Girl? These look spot on. So it is great that you're able to capture that.
Yeah, and again, this is one of the examples of what's been going on behind the scenes on the show and the hires that we made. In cinematography and costume design and stunt work and like every physical aspect. Kitty, who designed our department that you see, she designed the police department on the Shield, which I think is the best cop shop in television. Like we hired like really great people. Like our costume designer is Joss Whedon's costume designer, and her ability to take all these different looks and then unify them around a show, which is so hard to do, and she did it so beautifully. So from that, and Chris Faluna, our cinematographer, who just really met us on this idea of creating a look of the show with the color and shadow that Mike does, but instead of trying to imitate Mike's panel design, to capture what Mike does as a storyteller in the comic, which is real in-your-face kind of, that Raimi had pointed out, goes, it's really like he's really there, like the camera's like right there, and we should do that on the show. That should be our signature, is like you're right in their face. And so all these things is what you're seeing in this very first episode. Yeah. Is these big changes.
And Mike Massa, I have to throw, Calista does a lot of flying this season, and I had spent so much time with the stunt team because, well, that's what I did. It was amazing, thank you. But they are phenomenal. Everyone on our stunt team was so professional. I mean, they did like every big movie that includes stunts they have done, and to be so safe.
You can actually see it. Mike Massa's reel looks like he's lying.
It's like every Marvel movie.
Great stunt. Yeah. It's the Superman airplane scene.
Oh, wow.
The Neo versus the agents, Agent Smith. And you're like, come on.
It's everything.
And he's Harrison Ford's double. And when Harrison Ford got hurt on the set of Star Wars, you're seeing Mike a lot of the movies. Mike,
He was also Pamela Anderson's double one time. Funny story, in a helicopter.
I didn't know
with
that.
the wig. I have a picture. I have proof.
That's hilarious.
Amazing. Iron Man 3, like he's everywhere. And to be in that group of people, because I had never done stunts like that in 19 years of doing this career. I've never done. That's a dream job. You don't get that call. Be like, you're gonna fly. That doesn't happen. So
I was gonna ask you, what is that like?
It's terrifying. It's so exciting.
Was it?
And terrifying. And you feel like a kid, and you have like no idea what's happening. But luckily for me, that's what Calista's supposed to be doing. It worked out.
No acting necessary.
Yeah, I was like, all right, I don't know how to land. Great, let's do this entire segment because I have no idea if I can land this now.
Raimi would send me clips of you flying down from like 8 stories, all the way down with like Grace. I'm like, oh, that's her. I thought it was your stunt double. But it was you as often as possible. And they were pretty big stunts. There was one. I think it's in this episode where you take your father and
Go up.
Yeah. So that's really her. She.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the rain. It's only 3.5 stories. I'm like, okay. It's the first time I'm doing it, and they're like, the first time I'm doing it with a human, like another person. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm just trying to. You just puff up, and then I just, you get into character. I'm like, Calista knows what she's doing, and I'm like, yes. But it was amazing. And if it wasn't for our incredible stunt team, I wouldn't have felt so comfortable. But they've done it so many more times, and they're so aware and make sure that you're safe that you kind of forget about the fact that you're 60 feet up in the air. You're like, oh no, Mike says it's cool, and the harness is this big. You're like, no, it's totally safe. You're like, I look back and I'm like, what?
You're also very good at throwing punches. Your punch face is something to be.
Thank you.
Yes,
I haven't seen it.
Neither have we.
I know.
Episode 2
coming up.
You get into a fight and you were just there's no acting. You're just
it's like straight
just
therapy.
Working it out.
So just therapy.
Very cool. Very cool. Brian, I wanted to ask, going from season 1 to season 2, you had a break to think about it, really examine season 1. I'm interested, were there any things that you really wanted to change from season 1 or things that you really liked that you want to make sure that you kept in season 2?
A couple things happened different for me between season 1 and season 2. Season 1, I was there, I wrote an episode, but I wasn't as involved on day to day. I really went home, And when season 2 got greenlit, I got a call from Sony that said, we're about to greenlit season 2, but we would like you to come to work. And I'm like, oh, and they go, we want more of the aesthetic of the show. We'd like you and Raimi to really go forward and really conquer. And I was like, great. And I sat down with my wife and the kids to figure it out because it was a bit of a lifestyle change. But it was like, I want that too. And there was just things where about halfway through the first season, and I think we talked about last time we were here, about episode 6 of the first season, the show kind of found its footing, and which is pretty fast for most shows. Yeah. People don't remember, but back in the day, it would be the second season where people really found. When you think of The Shield, or you think of The West Wing, or Star Trek Next Generation, or Buffy, they're a decent first season, but it's that second season where they really found it. Mm-hmm. They really took stock of what they had and really blasted through the doors. And using that as inspiration that we could do it as well. Looking at episode 6 of the first season, everything got better. Like it's just, and it also was no small thing. That was the first time most of the cast was in the same room, so you got to really see the ensemble play, and you're like, see, look at that. The ensemble is very, very strong, and the look of this show could be very special, right? And then at the same time, with Jessica Jones and Daredevil hitting, it just like look how far we can take a visual look of a comic book show. So these things inspired us to go forward, and me and Raimi sat down and literally made a list of here's what we do, here's where we spend the money, blah blah blah. And as I said before, with these new hires behind the scenes, that was a big deal. I was in the writer's room for the whole time, wrote a couple episodes, really helped everywhere I can just to gear it into the comic book when it needed to be, and then to be its own thing when it needed to be, because that's also an important part, and it's a weird balance. You don't want to be a slave to the source material. But you want to have it there every time you need it. But then when the show is starting to sing on its own, let it sing. Don't start trying to shove it into another box. And we were very successful. Our writers' room was very interesting group of writers from Ben Edlund, who created The Tick. He was there. And we had procedural people and character people and people from last season. And we all had strengths and weaknesses and great arguments and a lot of fun together. And some of the crazier ideas just came out of just those conversations. So from and then right away, like just from the beginning, you're like, oh, I think we got it. Like, there's like the hires, everything was coming together. And as soon as we kind of set and it all started to flow, we're like, and all the actors, you remember you guys come and go, this is better.
So much better.
Am I nuts? Does this feel a lot better?
This
and I was like,
so good.
And that's where Raimi and his experience in television really helped, because he really knew what to do and how to get it.
He oiled the wheels
Yeah.
very well, and
Yeah.
it was just the machine. Once it was on the track, it was just going, and it was great.
And it was just a great partnership for me, and like we really like each other, and it was just it was just a great experience.
Cool.
And then using Mike Oming quite often, anywhere we could, in the visuals or the pre-production, and then finding out that our special visual effects director and Mike Oming kind of look like they're brothers. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
And they're both like demonic, and they have a lot of darkness in their artwork.
Oh.
And so we like in the comic, I would write, and this person's been murdered and it's horrible and they're dead on a bed. Then Mike would draw the most horrible thing you'd ever seen, like really horrible, and like take someone's boob off and just put it right next to them. And they're like, I didn't
I've seen it.
Yeah, and
It's
then
pretty gross.
But someone would say to me, like, "Ooh, what's wrong with you? You thought of it?" I go, "No, I didn't think of." And also Mike was in a weird place where he would draw a sex scene whether I wrote it or not. So I started aiming them into the story.
Oh, okay.
So then when we got on set, I was trying to capture these moments from the show. Our visual effects coordinator, really dark guy who, thank God, has it right. It was so funny.
Yeah.
And he would love Mike, and they were like became brothers because they're like, I'm gross, you're gross, let's make a dead body. And he literally just had all these body parts for us to explode and do crazy stuff.
It was the funniest set.
too.
You come home and you're like, oh, home. Set for me is home. You'd come home and I'd be like, oh, there's blood everywhere. Okay. Crafty? Like, it's hilarious.
No, Mike
disgusting.
drew a dead body, which you'll see in episode 9, where their intestines are draped over a fence.
It's just...
And then he just drew it that way, and then I showed it to the thing, and literally, like it was the Bible. He perfectly laid out the...
God.
Yeah, so.
Okay, well, let's move on to some social media questions.
Yes.
But
We have no rating.
Yeah.
So...
We're rated
that
R.
is true.
Yeah.
It is R, or is it for TV it's different. It's not an R rating.
Well,
but
we're
it's-
not really...
we don't have
It's essentially...
We don't have a rating,
Rating.
and
Right.
we go there with a lot of adult content because we can, and it's an adult world that we're writing for.
You guys definitely exploit that.
Yeah.
So Madsen has a question for Olesya. It's, do you think Calista has become more mature with powers or vice versa?
Is Calista?
I'd say more.
I think so too. Calista definitely is more mature. She's making more mistakes, which also comes with maturity because you're trying things. When you're immature, you don't go out and explore the world as much, and you want to stay in your bubble. And so she's really expanding her knowledge and trying to become more well-rounded and trying to find balance. And like I mentioned earlier, that internal safety, that internal guiding source in herself, which is a sign of maturity. So yes, she's still having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And she's still
But she's
a little
still
like,
young and making-
you know,
Yeah.
but she's still making those like irrational decisions. But she does have better intentions.
Our favorite choice was you. You're the hero ascending, and then Logan, who looked like she was the heir apparent, takes the biggest fall and has to find out, what she really wants. So those two stories going on at the same time and interweaving was a big deal for us in the writers' room.
Cool.
Okay.
Something to look forward to. Another question. Thank you, Madsen, for that question. Another one is from Everett. Did you enjoy working on the show? I'm assuming yes. But here's the real question. Would it be possible if the show were to have a tie-in video game? We're at IGN. We like video games.
Oh, no,
That would
I
be
love video
amazing.
games. No, first of all, we did have fun working on the show. Legitimately, it was hard for us because a lot of us are away from home and whatnot. But when everyone's got when all the juices are flowing in the right direction, everyone's got the same goal. It is a lot of fun. And also, listen, it's very bizarre. Me and Mike are standing on the set of a TV show that they're spending money to make that's based on his drawings, and we just stand on set and hug each other and jump up and down. And it never gets old. Like, you never sit there and going, another day at the office. You're like, what the heck? Every day. And then just as I'm calming down, someone would come visit, like friends of ours. A lot of my comic book peers would come visit. David Mack actually appears on the show. Kelly Sue would come down because she started working on a show on NBC, and she wanted to get a sense of stuff. And then my friends would show up and go, what is going on? I'm like, it's crazy, right? So it never got old.
No, yeah. Even as a comic reader, because it's been such a journey to get
Yes,
here, right?
yeah.
And it's happening. So it is great.
And even having like my kids on set, because when my day life is they come down the basement, daddy's in his boxers typing. It's not very glamorous. So if like one little moment out of the year, they get to come to set. And the difference is my 13-year-old pretty much decided she's going to be a producer director. She's
going to be amazing at it, by the way.
And Raimi just turned to me and go, oh, we ruined her. I'm like, yeah, I know, because that's what happened to Raimi, because his father was a writer of very famous TV shows from the 60s, like Route 66 and Man from U.N.C.L.E., and he would be on these amazing sets, and he got ruined. So my daughter, and we'll see where she ends up. She can do whatever she wants, but it's so intoxicating to be on a set. Yeah. And then my 8-year-old comes on set and says, so this food, I can have any of this food. This craft services is just, and she's like we haven't fed her in years. Just like, it's like filling her pockets.
Right? Yeah.
So all these donuts are really ours, is what you're saying. That's what I'm talking about. But so yeah, it was fun. And what was the other half of the question?
They want to know if there's going to be a video game tie-in.
Yeah, well, yes, we actually work for PlayStation. There's been many talks. There's nothing planned right at the moment, but certainly voicing your opinion at PlayStation would certainly help, because obviously there's at least 3 or 4 different genres where a Powers video game would crackle. We have talked about it internally. We would love to make it happen. Absolutely.
Cool.
I would love to play a video game with like a
Of your
little
character?
mini retro girl. I'd be like, no big deal. Like, I totally would love to do that.
Yeah.
And just going off of what Brian said, yeah, it is incredibly fun to work with. How big is our crew? 250?
Yeah, it's a lot of people. Yeah.
Anytime you have 250 people come together in one relatively small space and work cohesively together on one art project, which making a film or a TV show is one giant like canvas of a painting, and do it for one cause, and no one really like kills each other. And
Yeah, like everyone's
it's
from a different walk of life.
No, everyone's completely different.
Yeah.
From every department, you have completely different experiences. You have completely different political beliefs, everything, and yet somehow for 6 months you can just work together on one thing. It is so magical and such like a huge testament to, like, for me, for humanity. When I see that, I'm like, we could do anything. If we could do this, anything's possible. So anytime you have a cool project like this, it's pretty amazing to work on it.
I was literally once just me, Charlotte, and Susan. We're in Susan's trailer talking, and we're talking about there's Charlotte, who grew up in the mean streets of South Africa.
South Africa.
And me, a little Jewish kid from Cleveland. It's just we're all like we couldn't have like how did we all find each other? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And yet we're all humans. That's what we found.
One more social media question. We're almost out of time. Jeff wants to know, why hasn't Dina kicked Walker yet? And there's literally like 12 question marks at the end of this. He really wants to know.
Well, you know, I got to tell you, this is very true. Because of the choice we made in the first season of Walker's powers not being a secret, we lost some of those moments, right? And Charlton actually sat down with me and goes, there's a list of, he is the biggest fan of the comic in the world. I mean, just really sweet. It's unbelievably sweet. He sits down and goes, this is what I want to do that we missed. And we missed Dina kicking, like it was like things like that. It happens in the season. It is.
Yeah.
But we had to get to it from a different place. But we got to it. An episode I wrote, Dina kicks.
Cool.
There's
Very
a kicking.
cool.
A kicking
Olesya,
will happen.
Are there any moments from the comic that you've read that you really want to see?
You know what? Not really. I mean, honestly, they've kept it kind of secret for me. And Calista grew, you know, in the comic book, she's like a munchkin, and then she grows.
Right.
And so my character arc is different than what, obviously, that's in the comic. So I'm kind of keeping it like a free form for me.
Okay.
So it's not, so I don't get attached to anything.
No, I totally, yeah.
So then I'm not like, boo, Brian, you know. And I'm so busy flying and like learning how to do all these things.
I think you actually got a lot of what you wanted.
Yeah.
Like this season, like you
I
did
wanted
say,
depth. I wanted her to be the most realistic young woman out there, which is so rare in this industry. I wanted to have her make mistakes and be broken and then find security and then break again. And it's so real what a young woman really is. And there's just, and be sexy, but be smart. And I can have my boobs pushed up. That doesn't make me not a feminist. Like, I wanted all of that. And
Right.
Brian and everyone that wrote in the writer's room, like, made Calista this beautiful figure of a woman. And I'm so proud to be her.
And you remember we talked about that too. I even said, you know, in the world of comics, female uniforms are a big deal. And there's been a lot of forward movement, you know, Captain Marvel and everything, just putting pants on them, you know, but Retro Girl is an empowered, sex-positive feminist. And how are you? And I remember we talked about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are you? And you were like, you remember what you said to me?
Yeah, I'm like, this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm like, I can be sexy and I can be strong. And that's what I want to show young women that watch our show and men that watch our show, that just because I'm sexy and yeah, I am in a mini skirt, but I also have a cape on and my arms are buff, so don't mess with me. And I can do all this and I can save the planet, and that's what should be out there. Do you mean there is a power and a strength in sexuality?
I'm just like too sexy all the time.
I know, it's so hard for you.
No, but this is like the cross between my weird brain that thinks of weird, sexy power stuff to put in, and my father of 3 daughters brain. Are you okay with what you were like?
I'm like, no, I'm so okay.
Let's talk about
do this.
No, but you said, you go, I worked my ass off to look this way, and I'm do it. I'm like, all right, great, done.
Yeah.
That is all the time we have. Before we go, actually, can you tell people where they can watch Powers?
They can watch Powers on their PlayStation. If they have a PlayStation Plus account, it is free. Go with, have fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like
Cool.
my brother and me.
Nice.
Yes, and for all of those who did,
Hope you-
who did, you know, people really tuned in last season. They really got us to a second season. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for
you.
supporting
Thank
us, and
you.
thank you for, you know, looking, you know, for people who are watching our show, they're actively looking for something different than what's on network television, and we are it. So we're so happy they came to find us.
Powers Season 2. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Olesya, so much for talking to me. And for more on Powers and everything comic books, keep it here on IGN.
Thank you.